G'day mates, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildkard. Thank you for being here and watching my content. I really do appreciate it. And, ladies and gentlemen, we are on the road to Rugby World Cup 2023 with only 262 days to go. Woo! But you are here because it's Tuesday, and it's Tuesday News Day. So yeah, for me, I thought this is gonna be a quiet news week. You know, it's going to Christmas, everybody's just like relaxing, but there's actually a lot of news this week to talk about. So yeah, first up, the French president and the French president and the World Rugby vice chairman, his name is Bernard Laporte. He's formerly, I think he was a former French coach as well. And yeah, he has been sentenced 2 years in jail for corruption charges. So we reported that his trials a few weeks, maybe like a couple months ago. And yeah, the sentence has been given today, 2 years of jail time. And his partner in crime, this guy, Mohit Altrad, who is also being charged 18 months in jail for corruption charges in France Rugby. Yeah. So this has led to quite a bit of an issue here for a lot of different parties actually. So first up, the charges basically to do with a lot of the two people, the Laporte's involvement with Altrad in French Rugby. Basically there were some image deal rights that was done underhanded with 180,000 pounds, and there were also incidences where there were sanctions going to be against Altrad's club, Montpellier, and basically, like, Altrad came out and just, like, told them, hey, guys, let's not mess with that, okay? Let's just, you know, look at the other way. So there was a lot of different things, and also there was, like, in the French jerseys, they have the Altrad logo on it, and it's the first and only, I think, sponsorship logo on the French jersey, and this deal was worth $60 million. And basically, this was never done before in French Rugby, and people were just not really sure how this could have been approved. So, and obviously there were a lot of investigations into these issues, and yeah, eventually the court has been found that both men are guilty of corruption and facing jail time. So obviously, one of the big, I guess, what do you call it? One of the big, collateral damage is New Zealand Rugby. New Zealand Rugby, as you know, proudly currently with the Altrad logo written from the jerseys. And yeah, that's going to be an issue for New Zealand Rugby because they don't want the Altrad brand to tarnish the All Blacks brand. And yeah. So yeah, this is going to be an issue for New Zealand Rugby. There's been some talks in New Zealand about potentially just dropping the deal with Altrad, so which means New Zealand Rugby has to quickly find out a sponsor, because Altrad, obviously having the name printed in the middle of the jersey is paying huge sums of money to New Zealand Rugby, something that desperately need as well. So they need to quickly find a new sponsor for that for the jersey spot. And the second option is they might just continue, because you know, if they estimate that there's not that much of an issue for the image for the New Zealand Rugby's image, they're gonna continue with it, or they're gonna just, like, you know, that's the basic two options. So they're gonna try to assess how much damage this could potentially be for New Zealand Rugby, and to see if they're gonna go forward continuing the sponsorship. So yeah, big headache for New Zealand coming up, and as you know, they are currently short of money. They have the Silver Lake deal coming in, where they had to sell a percentage of their ownership. So yeah, it's not a good position for New Zealand Rugby to be when they're facing a lot of these financial issues. And obviously, World Rugby has to make an emergency meeting with regards to what to do with the vice chairman being in jail, going to jail for the next 2 years. He's also banned from he's also banned from he was also banned from, you know, being further involved with French Rugby for 2 years as well. So yeah, World Rugby will be looking to potentially, we'll be looking to replace him in the very short term. Obviously, the other side of the pond, in England, the great Eddie Jones has been sacked a couple, 2 weeks ago now, or a week ago, 2 weeks ago now, and it's been confirmed officially. There was some pretty firm rumors going around, but it's been confirmed officially that Borthwick is going to be taking over the current Leicester Tigers. Leicester Tigers coach Steve Borthwick will be taking over as the coach, and Borthwick had also negotiated for Kevin Sinfield, who is currently the defense coach, who also played rugby league for the Tigers, and he will be going along with him to England Rugby. And this has been a pretty big deal as well, because the RFU has to pay out their contracts at the Tigers, which is reportedly like $1 million for both of them. And also this was also an issue for the RFU, because they didn't really want to take on both coaches. They just want Borthwick. But Borthwick insisted that Sinfield come with him. So yeah, the negotiations also took a little bit longer as a result of that. But it has been done now. The two will be going to be replacing Eddie Jones. And also Eddie Jones obviously came out in an interview last week, reviewed what he thought went wrong for England Rugby. I did feel like there were a lot of players not in form for Eddie Jones. And obviously a lot of people felt like that is a selection issue from the coach. And Eddie Jones basically, admitted that it's a selection issue for his part. And he did say that he felt like that he put a lot of his eggs in some of these players, in others players that kind of like in the basket that of his, his go-to guys. And like I said, and he's also taken this a little bit further. So he felt like since the Saracens was relegated to the Champions League, which is to the Champions League, which is basically the B tier rugby league for salary cap just before the pandemic. So since they've been relegated, a lot of these players like Owen Farrell, Mario Toji, a lot of the Saracens, England's starting players. In fact, a lot of England's national team is the Saracens team. And as a result, a lot of these players were playing substandard rugby essentially, and not really polishing their skill set, not really getting better for pretty much like over a year or so. And as a result, Eddie Jones felt like he didn't take the step to kind of replace them. He really kind of just had his fingers crossed as that these guys are gonna still deliver for him, and in essence that these guys didn't perform. Yeah, and I did feel like a lot of the English players didn't perform, was underperforming. So yeah, that's basically Eddie Jones, how Eddie Jones saw it. He did admit that he probably should have brought up more newer players to fill the gaps, but he had relied heavily upon this injured, slash Saracens players returning to their forms. Yeah, also Eddie Jones has found himself a little side gig already. He will be coaching the Barbarians to face the World 15 in May next year. So yeah, has a bit of a gig lined up there for Eddie Jones. And also, there is currently a lot of talk about where Eddie Jones is going to be going. We've talked about how Rugby Australia is trying to get him involved for the Rugby World Cup next year. And there's also obviously there's a club. I think there's a which was it? He's currently also going to be consulting for one of the, I think it was a French club or like one of the I think it was he's also going to be consulting for one of the clubs at the moment, URC club I think. Anyway, one of the top tier clubs at the moment. But also he's currently has been revealed this week in Australian radio essentially that there's two rugby league teams looking to recruit Eddie Jones to be potentially joining. Eddie Jones is a big rugby league fan. He has talked about wanting to coach the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and also his former defense coach Seabold is currently coaching the Manly Eagles as he left the England job recently. So yeah, Eddie Jones is being talked about a lot in Australia, potentially moving into NRL rugby league. as a coach, and there's very, very high hopes for Eddie Jones as a rugby league coach as well. So the good news for New Zealand rugby is that Razor Robinson, is confirmed to remain in New Zealand to 2023. There was a lot of talk for potentially that he was going to leave to take over Eddie Jones, and as a result, that New Zealand rugby was going to be missing out on him for 2023, and potentially, having him as the replacement for Ian Foster after 2023, should things go awry. But yeah, good news for New Zealand rugby. They're, especially for the Crusaders, they're over the moon that he's confirmed to stay in New Zealand to 2023. And this is really good news for New Zealand as well. He will be available for coaching duties if Sir Fozzie runs the Titanic down after 2023. So yeah, so that's really good news for some of the Kiwi fans. Just before we move on further, I just wanted to say there are actually a lot of some of the key reasons. Obviously Razor Robinson had been speaking to England rugby directly. He's been visiting Eddie Jones in the past. Very recently when Eddie Jones was in Australia in July, he literally came to Sydney to meet with him. So it was looking like very likely that Robinson was going to be potentially taking over England. So why England's decided to eventually take Borthwick is that Borthwick actually worked with Eddie Jones in the past. He kind of kicked off his career so he obviously was a former player, and he was England captain for a couple of years, and then he kind of moved on to become a coach. He actually was assistant coach, forward pack coach for Eddie Jones when he was coaching Japan, when they did the upset in Brighton Miracle over the Springboks. Borthwick was the forward coach, so I felt like that's pretty big for him. So after Eddie Jones obviously moved to England, he also came to England and helped Eddie Jones a lot. So Borthwick had a lot to do with Eddie Jones' success in the early times with England when they became the Grand Slam champions. So yeah, and then Borthwick went to coach Leicester went to coach Leicester Tigers and took the Tigers from basically iffy club to the champions as well. So he's done really well in that part, and which is why knowing some of the systems that Eddie Jones used to do, being already familiarized with that, he will be quite a nice fit to replace Eddie as a kind of a natural transition back into the England setup. So that's most likely the reason he was selected over Razor, who hasn't had any international coaching experience so far, and will be pretty far from being able to link up with England in that regard. So yeah, so that's most likely why Robinson wasn't selected. Anyway, so yeah, Barnsley came out last week as well, talked about a lot of the horrendous abuse he's been getting online towards his wife and children. He went on a podcast and basically talked about, he, as a referee, he actually expects, some of this criticism and stuff from people. He obviously, nobody likes to be criticized, but he felt like this was just taken over the top after the Razzie video, after the referee, after his work between the Springboks and France. And as a result, it escalated to the point where his wife was getting abused. They talked about hurting his children and abusing his wife, and he thought that's just really fun, because he talked about how he, as a referee, he intentionally signed up. He knows what he was getting into when he decided to become a referee, but he felt like his wife and children did not sign up for this, and as a result, he actually thought about quitting refereeing. So yeah, but he decided to stay. But yeah, he also has a good job on the side. He's a partner at a law firm, so he doesn't need the money or anything. So he could go back and just return to this old job as a partner at a law firm, make lots of money. And so he does talk about that as something that he's really disappointed about rugby fans. And he did feel like, Erasmus should not have taken it so publicly about this criticism to kind of like, inciting people to kind of like hate on the referees a bit. And also he talks about not just Erasmus, but he talks about like in general the rugby fans becoming more hostile nowadays towards the referees. He talked about obviously Nick Berry after his family got abused after the British Irish Lions video from Razzie. There are other people like Andrew Brace who got abused from the fans. This is not the Springbok fans. So Andrew Brace, this was after England-France game. So this would be from, I think this was from the English fans. And then, talking about his dad's passing and all that sort of stuff. And it's just, it's just taking things a bit too far. So, yeah. Let me know your thoughts. I do think that, I do think that there's a line that the family and children should not be discussed. If you want to talk about the referee's performance, if you wanted to criticize the referee, the family, and it's definitely out of bound, in my opinion. In fact, let me know your thoughts on this issue. Next up, in Wales, there's obviously financial issues in the Wales Rugby Union at the moment. So they already had like a player left, as we discussed last week. Rollins has left Wales for greener pastures in France, and as a result, Rollins. As a result, I think there was also some talks about Gareth Anskin potentially leaving as well, and as a result, the Wales has again not finalized but had a verbal agreement to allow conditional contracts to be offered. So at the moment, because the funding hasn't been secured, hasn't been like granted, essentially it hasn't been confirmed for the clubs were not able to like sign players because they don't know how much money they're going to be getting from the from Wales Rugby Union, and as a result, people are not able to get loans. No one knows how their career is going, and people like Rollins have left the region. So now to kind of like stem the bleeding, to calm everyone down, Wales Rugby Union hasn't officially presented a solution, but they are allowing the conditional contracts, which will be conditioned upon obviously like the money they're going to be given and all sort of stuff. But it's not really like a confirmed deal as of yet. But this conditional agreement basically allows the clubs to sign up players they wanted to keep, and kind of like allow them to carry on the business essentially. So a pretty dire situation in the Wales at the moment. Furthermore, there were some accusations for sexual discrimination against a woman. Who was it? Charlotte Watham, if I say your name wrong. But so she basically wrote a letter to complain about some inappropriate incident in the organization, and both parties have last week came to an agreement, basically saying that there will be agreement that is or amicable resolution, basically a solution that is happy with both parties, and they have solved the issue essentially. But she has resigned as the general manager and in February, and this will be again just really poor management altogether from Wales in the union. A little bit more news from New Zealand. So as we have reported here, Beauden Barrett, we were talking about how he potentially be going to Racing 92 to replace Finn Russell after the Rugby World Cup. So there was a lot of news going around in New Zealand about Beauden what's going to happen to Beauden. And there was reports that came out in New Zealand that Beauden was asking for a deal to potentially go play in France for 2 years, a sabbatical, while still being eligible to play for the All Blacks. That's an agreement that has never been done before, and essentially this breaks that barrier to be that barrier of New Zealand only able to select players domestically, something that Australia and South Africa has moved away from essentially in some form or another. But this was looking like that's going to be the the glass ceiling breaking moment. But then the report kind of confirmed later on by Beauden Barrett himself that he did not ask for this because there was, obviously a lot of people were not happy, felt like he shouldn't be deserving. No one should is better than the team is what they kind of like believes in New Zealand. So Beauden came out and basically said that he didn't ask for it. It's something that New Zealand Rugby has proposed to him as a potential opportunity pending on approval by the board. And that's just not gonna be happening. And as a result, New Zealand Rugby is going to be looking at Richie Mo'unga leaving overseas. He has stated that it's going to be leaving overseas in 2024 after the Rugby World Cup. So with Beauden Barrett, where he's going to go is currently still up in the air. So if Beauden Barrett leaves, the New Zealand would not really have a world-class number 10 anymore. So yeah, be interesting to see how that goes. Kurtley Beale is going to be returned to play for the Tars next season, which is quite good. He has been like in the Wallaby camp, I think, maybe not like officially, but he's been around the Wallabies for a bit recently. So he's back officially for Tars to play for the fullback. We'll be see how good he has been. He's been playing in France, making some of the good money for himself, which is quite good. And now Racing 92 next to Finn Russell. Oh, by the way, let's actually talk about Finn Russell first. So the news came out, like we were talking about before, like I just mentioned here. That Beauden Barrett was rumored to replace Finn Russell at Racing 92, but Finn Russell has taken the next step for himself. Before anything has been confirmed that it's going to be replaced, Finn Russell will be joining Bath in one of the highest paid player in the world for £1 million a year. There's no specific length of the contract, but yeah, he's going to be definitely leaving Racing 92 after the World Cup next year. And Finn Russell is absolutely amazing at the moment. He's really, really, really kicking into another gear in his form. He's a lot better than when he was wearing this jersey in the Lions tour. His performance in the November Test series against both the All Blacks and Argentina was just absolutely sublime. Those two games that he performed against Argentina and France were the best performance by any fly half of 2022. That's how good he was in those two tests. I really think that Bath has signed a huge deal, and and if Finn Russell, keep his focus, he's only going to get it better. And in fact, I was actually thinking about this the other day with Tuipulotu at 12. The Scotland might actually have the best 10-12 combination in the Northern Hemisphere, at least. And so like they're both players just look so good. I'm actually really excited to see the opening game against England now. I just want to see Finn Russell play because I wanted to know if that was just like a fluke where he just played like an absolute god in those two games, or is he actually just taking his game to another level and just gonna show that off in the Six Nations. So I'm very, very high for Finn Russell's performance, and I really want to see it. I'm excited to see. I never see this before, but I'm excited to see Scotland play rugby. Yeah, that tells you how high I am on him. So anyway, his teammate Kurtley Beale has been back in Australia. He will be playing fullback for the Waratahs. So a bit more news from some players' injuries going now. So Georgia North has had a cheekbone injury, which went through some surgery, but he will be okay to return before the Six Nations. Xander Fagenson is injured for Scotland. Talking about Scottish rugby, he's got a hamstring problem, and he's going to be out till February. Six Nations kick off 4th of February, so he could still potentially make it. At least maybe the second or third test. First test as England will be a bit of a stretch for him. He might come off the bench. We shall see. So the Toulouse fullback Thomas Ramos, one of the best players in the French team, he's potentially going to be banned for a year. Yeah. So the game on the weekend incident involving him, he basically headbutted a player. He also looked like he struck a player earlier, which made contact to the eye. So he was cited for 2 incidences with a headbutt and potential eye gouge earlier. So yeah, he could be facing a year suspension. So more than a year actually. Depending on the level of violence that the judiciary sees it, he does have a clean disciplinary record. So maybe they're gonna not gonna go that hard on him. But yeah, he could be, if everything comes down, he could be banned for a year. So yeah, this is a pretty huge, and it's going to be, taking place tomorrow. So we'll find out next week, essentially, whether or not he's going to be able to play Rugby World Cup at all. He's quite a big name for the French national team in that regard. So another coach has resigned in rugby just before Christmas. It's the 12 days of coaching sacking 2022. Basically, the Romania head coach, Andy Robertson, has stepped down. So we've got United States coach stepping down, Gary Gold is his name, Gold. So the Romanian coach, Andy Robertson, has stepped down. Eddie Jones got fired. Wayne Pivac got fired. So yeah, everybody's losing their job as a coach in rugby at the moment. So yeah, he is resigned due to underwhelming performance, despite the fact that Romania has made to the rugby, qualified for the Rugby World Cup due to automatic qualification following Spang being deducted points and being dropped, deducted points for playing a South African player that was not eligible to play for Spain, essentially. But regardless, he is going to be stepping down, despite making it to the Rugby World Cup due to Spain being stupid. So more injuries. So Thomas Gallo, this Argentinian loose prop, quite good loose prop, he is going to be out for 2 months due to a knee injury. And finally, there's going to be a pro rugby tournament taking place, being established in Asia, called the Grand League, which will be involving teams from Hong Kong, South Korea, Malaysia, and Thailand and Philippines to be part of this tournament of I don't know, a Super Rugby competition essentially in this part of the world. But yeah, we shall see how that's gonna go. Obviously, Japan has their league on its own, but yeah, we shall see how these guys gonna go with the league. So anyway, that's the news for this week, guys. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on any of the articles today. I do really appreciate it. And I think it's Christmas next week. I don't know. Christmas to me is the bloodiest little cup, so I don't really know. You guys have fun if you do celebrate that sort of stuff. I don't care. And have a good one, guys. Enjoy your whatever you do, and see you guys next week.